Let's welcome our guest in the studio. Harrison Manga is the country director at Media Focus in Africa, and Lynette Mavu is a member of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. This is the one that has a long name that does those things. Intergovernmental Relations, the Technical Committee for Intergovernmental. Lynette, good morning.
Good morning to
Welcome
you.
to Kenya's Biggest
Thank you.
Conversation.
Thank
Good to
you.
have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
And that is part A of the hot seats of Kenya's Biggest Conversation. Part B of the hot seat is where Harrison is sitting.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Enjoy yourself. Make yourself comfortable. Don't worry. We're just going to have, the weather on the other end is looking good
Yeah.
and bright. It's warm. We'll just have some turbulence through the flight,
Okay.
but nothing to worry about.
All right.
Nothing to worry about. Tell us about the Media Focus on Africa. What is that? What's the organization about?
Yeah. So as the name would suggest, we're an organization that is heavy on using media for social change. So we appreciate that media has the central place to shape opinions, to tell us the things that matter and the things that we need to think about and focus on and set the agenda. So at Media Focus on Africa, we are bent on using that platform to bring about the kind of changes that we desire to see in our society. So whether we're talking about leadership, whether we're talking about free and fair elections, for example, whether we're talking about, peace and reconciliation, whether it's sexual and reproductive health, the central focus is always that we shall use media. And we use media as a means to an end and at times as an end in itself. So
When you say use media,
yes.
what do you mean?
So we create programs that go on media on the different platforms, can be on radio, can be on TV, sometimes on the newspaper. And of course, in the 21st century also, there's a social media as well. At other times, we work directly with journalists. So we seek to influence journalists and how they go about, the work that they do. So that's how we use media when I talk about using media. Yeah.
So because you're country director, does this
Yes.
mean that you're also in other countries in Africa?
Yes, we are. We have a fully operational operation in Uganda. We have had operations in Tanzania, but that is not, quite current right now. But we do have ambitions for Africa. But for now, Kenya and Uganda are the two places where we have ongoing work.
When you say fully operational, if I may ask, what do you mean?
I mean that there is an office with staff and projects and activities that are going on. Okay. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lynette Mavu, member of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. We have interacted with this committee before, but for the benefit of those who may not have heard that time, just tell us, what is IGRTC?
Thank you very much. IGRTC is an institution created by law, by the Intergovernmental Relations Act, Section 11, and it is the Secretariat to the National and County Government Coordinating Summit. That means when the President and the 47 governors meet, we are the Secretariat and we follow up in the implementation of their decisions. Apart from that, we also ensure that there is harmony between the national government and the county governments in terms of maybe if there are conflicts of functions, in terms of maybe any other conflict. So we ensure that they operate in harmony in the spirit of cooperation, consultation, coordination between the two levels of government. We also do alternative dispute mechanism, we undertake those activities, especially when we have maybe two counties conflicting or the national government and the county government conflicting. So we sit them down and apply mediation process to ensure that they operate in harmony for the sake of peace.
Just so we can come into the conversation that we're having today about Miss President, how did you end up at IGRTC? What's your journey there?
My journey was that they actually advertised the position of members. IGRTC came into place in 2015. So there was the first set of members whose term ended in 2020. So they advertised the position and I just applied. I was interviewed and I was appointed. So it was just a normal recruitment process, competitive process.
Okay.
Yes.
You are in the season 1 of Miss President.
Yes.
Tell us about that, about the show, about how you performed on the show.
Thank you very much. I was in Miss President season 1. I came across it actually on a WhatsApp group, the advert, and I applied. And surprisingly, I was picked to go for the auditions in Mombasa. So after the auditions, I was picked among the 70 top contestants, and we went to the academy. Of course, when we first went, we didn't even know what we were anticipating. My perception of Miss President then was that we were going to be trained on how to become the president of Kenya. And that I was very curious about, because I have really wanted to know how government operates, much as I've been working in government for the rest of my, the past of my life. The whole of my life I've just been working for government. But I wanted to know at that top level, how does it feel to be a president of Kenya? So I was very anxious, and at the same time very focused, and I knew I had a chance to win the prize of Miss President. So I went there very energized to really do the best of myself, to put my best foot forward. And I was taken through. It was a quite grueling experience, very traumatizing when I think about it. Because of the experience that we went through, the judges, facing the judges on a daily basis, and you don't know whether you'll be told to go home. There's nothing as bad as just waiting to be told you will go home today. It is such a tense moment. Actually, I think if I would have been taking my pressure that time, it must have been very high. Fortunately or unfortunately, I was eliminated at position 6. And I was quite grateful for that.
For the opportunity.
For the opportunity,
So
yes.
initially, when you heard about the show, you thought this is being taught on what the president does.
Yes.
Maybe trying to do some mock-up of being the president. Wake up
Yes.
today, declare war with
Yes.
South Sudan tomorrow. The other day, disband parliament. What did you realize the show is about when you joined the show?
I realized the show was not just about the president. It was about training and enabling us to, bring out the talent and the potential that we have as leaders, as women leaders. Not necessarily about presidency, because, a president is just one single person in one single term. But the rest of the women really need to participate in leadership. So it was about trying to see how we can bring ourselves out. We can, exploit the potential that we have as women, so that we can participate in leadership in Kenya and maybe globally if the chance comes up.
It's interesting that you say that. So then coming to you, Harrison,
Yes.
as media focus
On Africa.
what was the intent of this program? To see what she has said in terms of how she felt going through the process, and many others, and what she thought she was going to be going through. When you came up with the concept as the group, what was the idea?
Yeah, so just, tailing back to what I'd said earlier about trying to use the platform of media to, bring about change. Because we have lived in, at least in the context of Kenya, we've lived in a society that generally has subconsciously, intentionally or unintentionally equated leadership, with men more or less, and especially at the very top level. So Miss President was an intentional, for example, even just the choice of the name of the show was a very intentional thing, because we wanted to paint an image of a president, but of the female gender. And that would then arouse the curiosity of the, the people that would consume and participate in this program. So I would agree with Lynette to the extent that we seek to not only, show that we have a capacity, the potential in our women for great leadership, but to show that women can actually even take up the most coveted leadership position in our country. And so what we take them through is to refine them, to develop them, to challenge them, so that when people see what they do, when people see what they say while interacting them with in the show, then people can actually see that it is indeed possible that women can handle some of these roles. Because in certain places, people may not necessarily think so. In line with the kind of work that we do, and we've done work around elections, for example. And I remember in 2017, we were doing some work around the elections, and we'd go to certain places, and people would say, but how would a woman become president? What if she needs to take maternity leave, for example? What happens to the country? Can she declare war, for example, and things like that? So this is very intentional, deliberate imagery that we're trying to create. And in putting the contestants through what is truly a very grueling process is really to try and ensure that as people interact with the show, that it becomes very clear to them that the ladies can actually do this work, that they can take up some of these difficult challenges of our times and provide the leadership that is necessary. So really, that is really the intention of Miss President, to, plant it in the minds of Kenyans and our society, that leadership really at the end of the day is gender blind in a sense, and so anyone can actually do it, and that's the intention behind Miss President.
When you say grueling,
Yes.
you say it as though it is purposeful. It is intended to be grueling.
Yes.
That's part A of the question.
Yes.
Part B of the question.
Yes.
Detail for us this grueling process. Yes.
Yeah, so it is grueling. I guess we can argue about, to the extent that it is grueling. But it is grueling, one, because, we bring the contestants to Nairobi and we keep them in one place for a certain period of time. And every single day from about 6 o'clock in the morning to about 8 p.m. in the evening, they have a full day of programs and activities that they have to do. We give them assignments to do within a very short period of time. So we test their capacity to be able to handle issues fairly quickly. Then that assignment that they do is looked upon and reviewed by the judges. And ultimately, at the end of every single day, someone is told that they're either going to continue on in the competition or they're going to go home. And this happens from Monday through to Saturday. So literally they have like 12-hour days, every single day. Okay. Yeah, so that goes on for like 3 weeks, for instance.
Part C of the question.
Yes.
You have judges.
Yes.
What criteria do you use for determining who is a judge and what is expected of them?
So accomplish, they need to be individuals that are accomplished in certain specific areas. So you need to be an authority in a particular area. So without revealing too much, I'll just use an example. So we have one of the judges being a very accomplished person in the area of theater, for example. So your experience and the fact that you're an authority in a particular field is an important thing. And then there is also a mix of backgrounds and experience in that panel, so that, the perspectives that come through are diverse and therefore complement and supplement. And in that sense, then you end up with what should be a very objective and balanced view of the contestants and their capacities.
So these traits, I assume, must be abilities that are legal.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
The ability to sign contracts in the middle of the night is also legal.
It's very legal.
yeah.
You did mention that, a chance to showcase that the top seat in the country, or that, the responsibility is gender blind.
Yes.
Is there also the push to have these women who go through the program then to seek positions in government, to then go into governance and leadership in the country? Is that what then they're being primed for?
Absolutely. So, in fact, some of them are already seeking to enter the leadership space. So, for instance, for this season's Miss President, we have 4 contestants seeking various seats in the elections that are coming up in about a month's time, part of the group. From the first season that happened in 2019, we have about 9 ladies who are part of the Miss President Season 1, also candidates cleared by the IBC for a variety of seats in these elections that are coming up. We have had some since then who have also gone into government. Lynette Mavu is an example. We have the current Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Youth and ICT. We have others who have appointments, within state parastatals and all that. So yes, so there is an intentionality to prepare these ladies for leadership, both within the political realm, but even general leadership within the public service, for sure. Yeah.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
No, please, Eric.
How long is the season, and what happens through the season?
Yeah, so typically it's aligned to what would be considered a season for the kind of format that we're using. So a season is typically 13 episodes long. The first one was, so therefore in that manner of speaking, the first season was about 2 seasons long because it had 26 episodes. This second season is a little longer than 1 season, but not fully 2 seasons, so it's 20 episodes. And so every episode is tied to a specific theme. And we have tried to align the themes with typically what would be the functions of the Office of the President. So, for example, there would be an episode where we're looking at the challenges around national security, for instance. There would be another episode where we're looking at the challenges of food security and that kind of thing. So every episode is thematic and intentionally so that whatever the ladies are asked to do, the kind of tasks and challenges that are posed to them are very real and things that Kenyans are grappling with. For example, without revealing too much, but currently the cost of living is a menace, and everyone is complaining at just how expensive life has become. Kenyans expect their president to provide leadership in terms of how do we manage and mitigate against this very high cost of living. So what can government do? So those are some of the kind of questions and challenges that we pose to the contestants during the program.
Using the example of the first season,
Yeah.
pick some of those challenges that, for example, you took the contestants through,
Yeah.
and what they were expected to do,
Yeah.
and how they fared.
Okay.
And if you look back, did they grasp the challenge?
Yeah.
Did they understand the brief? Did they deliver on it?
Yeah. So last season, we, for example, have the challenge of how do we live in a sustainable environment. We all know that, for example, the natural resources that we have are not endless. Depending on how we utilize what we have, we can very easily exhaust what we have, but we can also be harming the environment while we go about it. So there was a challenge about waste management that season 1 contestants were given. And I remember that they were taken to a particular place within Nairobi of an entrepreneur that collects waste and uses that waste to make very interesting furniture and things for the playgrounds for children and that kind of thing. And so they went, they had a conversation with that entrepreneur. They looked at what happens there. And so at the end of it all, there was a challenge for them to sort of draw up a policy around how we can do very sustainable waste management in Kenya, so that our environment is healthy and safe, but at the same time, employment opportunities are created for our young people and any other category of persons that may want to be involved in that kind of work. And it went really well. And it was one of the episodes of the first season that was quite, popular, even in terms of the viewership that we see even until today on YouTube and even the viewership numbers that we were given by KTN. It was quite an interesting episode. So yeah, they really grasped the concept. I don't know if, since the show ended, if the individual contestants have carried on along that line, but at least within the context of the show and the assignment that they were given, they had, grasped that quite a bit. And I can even, again, talk about something that they have been challenged on, in this season to do with the cost of living, and I think some very interesting ideas have been put on the table by the contestants, and I think when we get to watch this season's programs, we will get to see and interact with that.
Is there a winner in every episode, much as there is somebody who will be
Sent away.
evicted?
So there isn't a winner per se in every episode, but the best performing contestant is acknowledged and congratulated. But the winner will ultimately be determined by the viewers of the show, because at the tail end of the show, there will be a voting process, and that voting process will determine who wins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a break at this point. We continue the conversation after this break. Harrison Manga is the country director at Media Focus on Africa, and Lynette Mavu is a member of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. But for the purpose of this conversation, she was in season 1 of Miss President. We're about to launch Miss President season 2 on KTN, and that's what we're talking about. What is this show all about? What should we expect to see in season 2 of Miss President? How should we participate in even selecting the winner of this show?
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It continues. We are live on SpiceFM, KTN Home and Online. Harrison Manga, Country Director, Media Focus on Africa, the producers of Miss President, Lynette Mavu, who was on Miss President Season 1. We are talking about Miss President Season 2, which is about to premiere on KTN shortly. City?
The choices and the process of determining who is in the select group of the Miss Presidents. Selection process.
Yes.
How equitable is it? And how representative is it of the country that we have? The numerous peoples of the country that we have.
All right. So thank you. So our selection process is quite deliberate. So we start with putting out a form that every interested lady or woman in Kenya would need to fill. So the limitations are that you need to be at least 21 years old. We need you to have at minimum a college diploma. And then the other most important qualification is that you need to be someone that is engaged in their community and that can actually demonstrate what it is that you do to improve the welfare of your community. So those are the, sort of the three basic minimum requirements that we look at. But that form has a variety of questions that someone needs to respond to. And the questions are weighted, so the different questions carry a different level of marks, and so that is basically what we look at in the first instance, and helps us to draw up our shortlist of the people that could potentially end up on the Miss President show. And so this form is distributed across the Republic. So we distribute it, we make it available online. We share it on our Facebook pages. But we also do something we call, we have a group of people we call Mashinani ambassadors. So these are people who are based out in the counties. So we get them these forms and we task them to move about in their communities to speak to the women and the ladies in their communities about the Miss President and ask those that are interested and willing to fill out the form. So that is how we also get the word out. Of course, our broadcast partner in this instance, KTN, also supports, the distribution and the awareness creation around the show. So this season, the first set of applications that came in, we had a total of 750 applications that were submitted, and these were from 46 counties of the Republic. So we didn't get an application from just one county in the nation.
Which was?
That was the county of Samburu.
Okay.
Yes. Then once we have the applications in, we review each and every single application that we receive based on the weighting that I talked about. So every question in that form is weighted. And then we draw up a short list. So from the 750 that we had this time, we had an initial short list of 320. When we have drawn that initial short list, we now go into what we call the auditions. So we group the country regionally. So we cluster a number of counties together, aligned more or less to what were used to be the former provinces of Kenya. And so we go out there and invite the shortlisted applicants to come, and we put them through an interview process. So there are certain questions that we ask them. I think Lynette would be able to tell you what that was like in 2018 when she took part in that. So then we ask them those questions. And I think the most interesting question in that list of the audition questions is that at the end, we usually ask them to address the nation as the president on Mashujaa Day. And we usually give them 2 minutes to do that.
And are they required to begin their speech by fellow Kenyans?
We do not require them, but it tends to start that way.
And they have to say, my government.
My government.
Absolutely. So it tends to, that tends to happen. So and then out of that process, we eventually draw the final shortlist. I will tell you that in season 1, when we started with a group of 70.
70?
Yes.
70?
Yes, 70.
Okay.
We had a total of 40 counties of this republic represented in the show. In this season 2, where we have a starting point of 750, by the time we drew up our shortlist, which was 51, so we began the process with 51 ladies, we had 33 counties of the republic represented. In terms of the ladies, we have teachers, we have medical doctors, we have entrepreneurs, we have politicians, and for the first time, we had someone who actually came from the streets in Kisumu. We had a lady who has practiced as a seller in the streets of Kisumu.
That's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's an entrepreneur. So I'm just using that to say that, we have a very good representation of the country.
You don't leave anybody out.
And we don't leave anybody out. And I think it's one of the things that we are most proud about, that process is fairly open and very, we don't do any gatekeeping, so to speak, when we are selecting those that come onto the show. So anyone that meets the criteria ultimately ends up on the show and has a chance at being Miss President.
So for you, Lynette, I mean, you're working in government before.
Yes.
And then going through this process. For those who maybe would have been, green completely, like some of those contestants that we've been told about. For yourself, how then did this process change? Okay, so you were not Miss President at the end of the day, but surely there must have been things that you walked away from with that then affected how you did work later, or how you thought about the government or leadership process. Was that the case for you?
Yes, indeed. I did work for government, but not, of course, at the level of presidency or anywhere near presidency, except that my last assignment before Miss President, I was a CEC for devolution in Taita Taveta. So I had quite some experience in actually ground, people, interacting with people at ground level, and actually getting to understand their issues, getting to understand governance, getting to understand the environment, the resources in Taita Taveta. That was an advantage for me. However, when I came to Miss President now, I didn't at any time think that was going to help me in any way, except when now we were told to do some research on Kenya, as a nation, and we'll be able to give, a speech on the natural resources and what you can do about them. That's when now I recalled what I had interacted with in Taita Taveta. So for me, it was a very good experience, because it was able to now make me relate to my experience as a CEC and having worked for government for some time to actually top leadership, and how I can change that into policy, mainstreaming those issues in policy, and so on. So really, Miss President enabled me now to put into practice some of those things that I had interacted with before, and how they could be able to help in leadership as a woman in Kenya. Yeah.
What would you say are some of the things that are absolutely needed, that you found out from this process, that are absolutely needed for anybody who's going to be at any level in government, in leadership?
One word: confidence. Yeah, I think confidence. And I think that is what Miss President really nurtured me to bring out. Confidence in what I am talking about, confidence in what I believe in. Whether the judges seem to believe it or not, I think I learned to be confident. Like I remember the last time I was eliminated, if I can talk about it, they asked me about the Kulalo project. And I said there is a chance to redo that project. And I know the judges may not have agreed with me, but I was very confident about it. And that confidence helped me even in my interview for a member of Intergovernmental Relations, because when I went there, really, I didn't see anything new. Much of the questions that they were asking, I was very confident with my answers, whether they agree with them or not. So I can say it brought out a lot of confidence to address people, to address issues, and to be assertive in what I believe in. And at the same time also be objective enough to listen to other people and to take other people's perspective. Yeah.
Lynette, how many weeks of filming did you go through in that season? From the point you started to the point you were eliminated?
I can't remember.
Was it continuous, or were you told, okay, come, let's film on Wednesdays or Thursdays?
No, it was continuous.
It was continuous.
Except for the breaks that we had after was it 2 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks we had a break, all of us. And then another 3 weeks we had a break where they came to shoot back at home and to check on the community projects that we were doing at home. So it was continuous rather, because even when we went at home, we also were able to prepare our people on the filming that they were coming to do back at home.
So it's a continuous engagement.
Continuous engagement.
On
yes.
the show.
Yes.
Sort of like following you throughout as you are living your day.
Yes.
And as you're going through the challenges.
Yes, yes.
Now, you had experience in government as a CEC, and then you also interacting with other ladies throughout this. Were there, personal differences that would emerge during this process?
Yes, a lot.
What kind of clashes are these? I mean, it's human nature.
Yes, it's human nature, and it is good to appreciate that when you are in a group, then you are most likely going to have differences because of difference in opinion. And indeed, we did clash, but I think from the beginning, as a group, we agreed that much as we differ, we will continue to hold together as women. And we differed, especially in times of elimination, because you were supposed to go and mention a person who you think
ought to go home. And at some point, I think we as people from Coast thought we were being targeted. And we were very furious. We thought, why is everybody from Coast being eliminated on a continuous basis? And we raised it up as an issue among ourselves, and we felt people are being unfair. But later on, we just cooled down, and that's what I'm getting into, actually.
continued,
Now,
yeah.
There's group dynamics,
Yes.
interpersonal dynamics, and then it's a political show as well.
Yes.
Throughout everything, you are being immersed into a political thinking.
Yes.
Now, do you get into that and start caucusing politically and saying, all right, so you and I, we are going to be the top 4, so let's work together, create a group amongst us that will be eliminating the people who we think are threats?
True, at some point, there was that caucusing and strategizing so that we have people remain. However, it didn't last long, because you would find yourself being eliminated by the same person who you are caucusing with. So later on, you realize the best thing is to just be independent and be objective. So there was caucusing and politicking. And I think life is about politicking at some point, because when you have to lobby for an issue, then the caucusing is very important. I think we call it kamkunji. You kamkunji and you make decisions and you follow. But really, they were not really effective.
Lynette, what exactly was the criteria used for eliminating people?
The criteria was you work in a group, and then at the end of the day, you are called one by one. And you asked, who do you think should go home?
Yes, but
then when you go there, you give a name and give reasons. Yes. So maybe sometimes the person was not cooperative in the group. At other times, maybe the person was just not giving any input to the group.
You don't pick out the leadership skills.
Why
Then you go on.
was there criteria that was given to you for determining who should stay and who should leave?
No. There was no criteria determined.
So they just allowed your personal biases to take full reign.
It was personal, but however, the judges now made the final decision.
Yes.
After we gave the names, the judges also sat and decided, because at some point we looked at it as a way of eliminating the best people, because some people would just go and mention the best so that the competition becomes easier. So the judges had to intervene and really look at it objectively.
It's a purpose of politics, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
you look at your most likely competitor,
Yes.
and you want to deal with them at that point.
Yeah.
Harrison, what's the plan there in
Yeah.
terms of the elimination process? How do you balance between the politics
Yes.
and the interest of the show?
Yes. So one, and the reason why generally the elimination names will come from the contestants, and why they're also put in groups up to a certain point, is the appreciation that even if you're going to be the president of Kenya, you will not lead Kenya as an individual. You know, you have a cabinet, you have advisors, you have all manner of people that you have to work with. And so being able to manage and handle group dynamics is just as important for a leader as anything else. So that there's an intentionality about it in that sense. And asking them to select two among them should go home is also just preparing them for, the tough decisions that you have to make when you will have to, sack people and dismiss them and that kind of thing. But ultimately, so when they're at the group level, it depends a lot on the task that was given and how the task was handled, and whether the task was handled well or not, and then the contribution of the individual in that process. Was the individual obstructing the process? Was the individual uncooperative, and that sort of thing? So that is ultimately what the judges consider more than anything else, because when they are asked to nominate anyone, you must provide reasons why. So those reasons are form the basis of the deliberation and the considerations that the judges make. And when, as can be the case, as Lynette has rightfully put it, when we see that there is a deliberate attempt to edge out any particular individual, then that can also be taken care of. For instance, if we have a group of 8 and all 7 decide that it's Lynette that needs to go home. And you can quite clearly see that the reasoning behind why she should go home is quite similar. And it's not anything substantive about her inabilities. It could just be that today, she was nodding her head more than she should, or something like that. So you can quite clearly see, because we also know that people are trying to edge each other out, eliminate the competition, as you have said. So then judges also have discretion to apply themselves in a scenario like that, and not necessarily send someone away.
But Harrison, there's no guideline as to what they should consider when making these choices.
Well, not that there is a specific set guidline.
Let me explain why I'm saying this.
Yes.
The role of a president is clear.
Yes.
It's even written.
Yes.
When when a president appoints people,
Yes.
it's also understood what those people must have. It's not the panels that they go to for interviews are clear. We're looking for this, and the other.
Yes.
Now, the difficulty would be in trying to match the individuals with these requirements.
Yes.
But when you leave it, it's a free reign situation when somebody just looks at Eric and says, he knows he's not in the right place today.
Yes.
Decision. Now,
Yes.
that isn't difficult, because that's why I said earlier on, you allow the personal biases to reign. When my personal biases are at play, it's not difficult.
Yeah. So how I would respond to you, City, is that, number one, in terms of the process that gets the contestants onto the show, I think a lot of the right people ultimately are on this show. So now we are at a point where we are basically, you're looking for the best among equals, so to speak. So we are not therefore too conflicted about who ends up being Miss President, for example, because from the category of 51 that we have, really any one of them can be. So this is really just, for us, the elimination process is a test to just help nurture the ability to work in teams and to be able to be accommodative of different perspectives, opinions, and what have you, and then be able to complement each other and seek a particular purpose. And therefore, that's why the elimination process is not very rigid or set in stone, so to speak. Yeah.
I also like the fact that it's open like that, City, because it's a political process. Much as we say, even for removal of president, there's a threshold, constitutional threshold. There's you've done this, the other. It's a political process. You're impeached because you have a political team that is against you, and they're a majority. So if you cannot really galvanize the people who are there in the show with you to keep on your side, you can't be president, Buana.
You mentioned impeachment as a good example, but usually you've given them the fodder with which to impeach you. What you're saying, notwithstanding, is probably true.
Yeah.
Because there'll be as many people as you who have similar issues, but you'll find no one trying to impeach them.
Yeah.
Yes, but if you're on the wrong side of the divide,
Yeah.
well, woe betide you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Where we're in jail.
Yeah.
Harrison, when does the season 2 premiere?
So it's going to premiere tonight at 8 p.m. on KTN Home. And we will have a show thereafter every Thursday at 8 to 9 p.m. My simple arithmetic may not be quite on point, but I think the last episode will go on air around the 9th of November. That's when we will find out who the ultimate Miss President for this season shall be.
And we, as the audience, are the ones who are going to pick the winner.
It will not be the judges or anyone else. Once we get to the final 5, we will have a final 5. The final 5 will participate in a presidential debate, sort of modeled along the lines of what is going to happen in a couple of weeks' time, I think, for the election. So we'll have a presidential debate amongst the 5 of them. We will organize some kind of campaigning for them as well. And then at that point, we'll invite the viewers to vote for them. And we will simply tally those votes, and the person that gets the most votes from the viewers will become the Miss President.
There's nothing like a 25% threshold from half of the constituencies.
No.
No signatures from
2,000 signatures from.
It will be simply administratively, we would not be able to do that as the way the show is designed. So we'll simply provide a short code number where SMSs can be sent. And so the only voting that will happen will be by SMS. And of course, there will be regulations to ensure that is not abused. So there'll be safeguards about how that will happen. But voting will only be by SMS. And simply the person that will have the most votes will be declared the Miss President.
What does the winner get?
The winner gets a prize of $20,000. The first runner-up gets $15,000, and the second runner-up will get $10,000.
CT's thinking maybe you should have gone for Miss President. I don't know.
Bro.
And by the way, that's an improvement on
2
season
million,
1.
just like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there? You get the 2 million shillings. You can spend it however you want.
Not quite. Yeah. So there will also be.
Spend it anyhow.
Yeah. No. There will be limitations as to how you spend that money. I don't really want to go into the details of that right now. But there will be a limitation.
Essentially, there's guidance.
Right.
Definitely, there is guidance.
Right.
Yes.
Not limitation.
It's
guidance.
It's not for you to go and buy a brand new car.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, Lynette and Harrison. Let me just say who you are again. Harrison Manga is the country director at Media Focus on Africa. They are the producers of Miss President. Season 2 premieres on KTN Home tonight at 8 p.m. It's going to run for the next 20 weeks. The final episode somewhere in November, where the audience will be the public will select the winner.